This is Inside the Wolf's Den, an entrepreneurial journey with Shawn and Joni Wolfswinkel.
Welcome back to Inside the Wolf's Den with your host, Shawn and Joni Wolfswinkel. Today we have a guest in the house with us, Bobby Sharma. How are you, Bobby?
Doing great. Wonderful to be here. Thank you, Joni. Thank you, Shawn. Thank you, Brett. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. So just a quick bio on Bobby. So Bobby came to the United States to study computer science in 1984 at the University of South Alabama at the age of 18. After graduating from the university, Bobby found work in Southern California at the age of 24, bought his first single-family home with the savings from his work. Bobby eventually found a job at Silicon Valley and worked in several technology startups. That was always his goal. His admiration for technology and technology leaders led him to Silicon Valley, where he lived for 30 years. However, due to a layoff, that Bobby started seeking alternative income. Near the bottom of real estate market collapsed in 2010, Bobby started buying REO properties at the courthouse steps, starting in Oakland and San Jose, but then growing into other markets in the Midwest. In 2011, he started a real estate networking group that has now grown to be the largest group in San Francisco Bay Area, with 5,000 members, in South Florida with over 2,000 members. Since then, Bobby has helped companies grow and has been a partner in several real estate companies. Bobby has been an LP, GP, and co-GP in several syndications and currently manages 4 real estate funds with 80 million plus equity under management. So, man, Bobby, this is a pretty nice bio here. I'm looking forward to getting into this and, learning more about you. And obviously we kind of know how you got started, but I want to hear more about that. Give us a little background and how this all got started.
Yeah. So, thank you. It all started. I graduated, and then the policy at that time was that if you could find work within, I was on a student visa. I was a foreign student, and when you graduate, the policy at that time was if you could find work within 6 months, they would let you stay in the country. And then if the company agreed to sponsor you, then you could stay in the country longer and then get your green card eventually. So I had 6 months to go find work, and I ended up leaving Mobile, Alabama to go find work in California. And, the job market, luckily at that time in Southern California, was very good. Mm-hmm. And they needed programmers. And so I got several job offers, and one of them agreed to sponsor me for my green card. And but one of the things that happened was because, the rents in California are so high, I was renting a room from a gentleman. This is now, I'm talking 1988, 89 era. So, before Joni was
born. Hey, she's older than me.
All right. But yeah, so this gentleman was actually house hacking. He was in the master bedroom, and then he had 2 other spare rooms, and he was renting out the 2 rooms. And but one day I came from work, came home, and he went a little bit too far. He had rented out the living room.
Wow.
So I come home, and there's a couple living in the living room, and I'm like, wait a minute, I didn't sign up for this. But
hey, wait, I have an idea.
Co-living, yeah. Yes. Wow. But anyway, long story short, I said if he can do house hacking, before that was a term, I'm going to try and find ways to save money on rent. So I found a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, and I went to the realtor and I said, hey, I'm here legally, but I don't have a green card, and I'm not a citizen, but I have a job. And she's like, I don't know if you can get a loan, but let me check with my broker, and we'll get back to you tomorrow. Anyway, she talked to the broker, and the broker said, as long as he has a W-2, we can hook him up with a loan. So so they did. So I find myself in Riverside, California, with a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house at the age of 24.
Wow. Awesome.
Yeah, and I that's kind of I placed an ad in the paper. There was no Zillow or Craigslist or anything like that at that time. So the phone started ringing. Luckily, found two renters very easily, and they weren't quite they were covering the mortgage, but property taxes and insurance I was still coming out of pocket. But it definitely helped me, save up a little bit of money. Yeah. But anyway, that's when I got hooked on real estate, and that was at the age of 24 in Southern California.
What amazes me about the whole story is that, number one, you came, from another country. You're here just for a student visa, and then because so many people make excuses, like people born in the U.S. and you just took advantage of an opportunity. You just had your green card and you're still buying real estate, which I don't understand why people can't see that, or just what do you think contributes? What made you different than somebody born in the U.S., got to go to college, and they still make excuses why they can't buy, why they can't do this, why they can't find a job, and it seems like you overcame all the obstacles. Yeah.
Shawn, me and Joni, we could do a whole podcast on why there's so much missed opportunity by folks that are born here.
Yeah.
And it amazes me, and I'll take a little detour, just a tiny little detour. So I got no financial aid. I got no student loans. I wasn't smart enough to get any kind of scholarships. But I worked my butt off. So during summer, my dad did give me $6,000 to come here, and by the time I paid for tuition and boarding and books and food, at the end of the 9 months, that $6,000 was gone. I was down to $118. So my first job, I was only allowed to work on campus. I couldn't work off campus. So I would pick up any job I could. So my first job was a dishwasher at the University of South Alabama, their main cafeteria. Mm-hmm. So I would school in the morning, and then at night, in the evening, around dinner time. So from 4:30 till 10, I would work as a dishwasher. Mm-hmm. And make a long story short, I graduated with a degree, an old Toyota Celica, a black Celica, I still remember, and $27,000 in my bank account. So when I hear people, whining about their student loans and they're in debt and all that, I'm like, well, it's just because, they made it too easy for you to get into debt. They want you to get into debt.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But yeah, it was every summer. I worked hard. I would work 3, 4, 5 jobs, paint the dorms, clean the dorms, whatever it took to make it work. But
and that's it. I think it's the work ethic. I think that I always say that successful people, all of us have a story, right? A lot of us didn't grow up with a whole lot. And so we just knew that, all right, and we're going to try our best to do whatever we can, because what we can't lose. Right. And so, I think that, it's all about the work ethic. It's about, it's everybody has a story. All the successful people have a story. And I love your story, Bobby, because I think, it just proves that, with just a little bit of work, anything can be done.
Talk a little bit about that mindset of buying your first property. What attracted you to real estate to begin with? And then what made you think a 24-year-old with a green card was going to buy, a piece of property in Southern California? In Southern California, of all places. Yeah.
I think ignorance is a place,
Yeah.
Hey, I love it though. Where it's got you, right?
Shawn, I was just trying to figure out, at that time, I was making, I'll be honest with you, I was making $20,000 a year in Southern California. That was in 1980, almost 89. And I was like, okay, how do I save a little bit of money what do I need to do? So one of the big ticket items that was an expense was rent. Rent is, and so I always kind of like scratch my head, like, how do I reduce my rent? What do I need to do? So when I saw this gentleman that I was renting a room from, and he was doing it, and I kind of back of the envelope did some numbers, I'm like, okay, I've saved up some money. I'm going to use that as a down payment. They wanted, a 20% down payment. And I'll keep my mortgage down. And if I rent out these 2 rooms for, let's say, $400 each, it covers my mortgage, right? And so I'm kind of like living for free, even though there was no, that term didn't exist. But that's kind of what I was doing. And so Shawn, that's what was the driving factor. What I didn't realize is that every weekend you got to go to Home Depot and
something's always breaking.
Yeah. Do you still go to Home Depot? That's the question. No, joking.
Let's talk about it later in your story where you, I think you mentioned been working for 30 years, kind of got laid off at your job, or did get laid off, and then started looking at getting more serious about real estate investing and buying more and buying. It looked like REOs at the courthouse.
Yeah, that's what I want to know.
So
and get into that.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about that, but I also want to know because at that time, right? Do people think you're crazy buying real estate in 2010? And I'll follow it up with a question after that. But yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right. So I had a really decent job. I was making good money. Had gone through a divorce. In California, they wipe you out. You're the owner. So we won't go into that on this family show. But
cheaper to keeper. Just kidding.
But yeah, I was trying to hustle. I was like, okay, and now I'm behind the 8 ball. I lost. I did own a house, and with when I was married, I had to sell that, give her half, and then give her alimony. So I was again behind the 8 ball, and so the divorce wrapped up in 2005. I was renting from 2005 to 2010, and then in 2010, I saw a house, and I remember that neighborhood. Those homes used to go for $650, $680. This house was listed for $285.
Wow.
And I went to the realtor, and she goes, yeah, it's a bank-owned property. If you want, you can make an offer. It's just like any other regular sale. They got to approve it. But, you can make an offer on it. And we'll see if they accept it or not. So I'm like, okay, this is almost 50%, 55% discount from the peak. So I'm going to go ahead and make an offer. So we did, and they accepted it. It needed very little work. I still own it. I've got, a tenant in there, and that's what. And now, had I learned what people like you and Steve are teaching now about leverage and other people's money and all that, I would have backed up the truck and, bought the whole thing. But at that time, I was like still very conservative. Like I'm going to only use my money, but now based on what they teach nowadays, the gurus, and about leveraging, and it would have been amazing, but it was a scary time. It was all, strategic defaults and the amounts of, people just leaving their keys and walking away from their homes. I'm sure Houston went through that as well.
Oh, yeah.
There were some deals in Houston back then.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's when I said, okay, you know what, maybe. So when I got laid off, I had some time on my hands, and I would send out resumes, and then I'd do some research about real estate on the side, and and then I started going to the auction and just kind of observing like what's going on at the auction. And then finally met a contractor who used to buy quite frequently at the auction. And he's like, okay, you know what? If you want to buy one, I'll partner up with you. You buy it. I'll do the rehab. You pay for everything. We'll split the profits 50-50. And that's what got me going into the Oakland market. So we bought a few fixer uppers in that market at the auction, all cash. And we didn't make a lot of profit, to be honest with you. We made okay money, but not the kind of money that people are making in the past 5 years.
Correct.
The market was still, kind of a little shaky, but it was recovering. It was starting to recover.
Yeah.
So that's, yeah.
I was going to ask you, what's that home that you still own today worth that you bought for $285, if you don't mind?
I bought it for
$1 million. About $1 million.
Yeah.
It's just a working class home in San Jose, and I get the monthly Zillow alert, like what it's worth, and it just crossed $1 million. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. We joke, Joni and I joke around about so in 2010 we started the turnkey model at that time, and we were buying a lot, but I could have bought a lot more.
$30,000, $40,000.
We were buying homes for $30,000, $40,000, and in good areas, good solid homes. And
they're probably worth about.
We were so nervous.
$250 now.
Way more, like 300.
300 maybe.
Yeah. But we were just nervous, and like, man, and I wish, like you said, I should have done hundreds, but you know. Yeah,
so Shawn and I actually used to knock on doors. We knocked on doors for about 10 years in Houston buying pre-foreclosure properties. So we know the foreclosure market and how that all works. But buying on the courthouse steps, that's a whole different ballgame, because at least we were getting into the properties and we knew what we were buying, right?
Yeah.
Talk about some of the challenges that maybe you had to go through buying on the courthouse steps, and maybe some things that you didn't realize once you got into it.
Yeah, no. There was so two things that I learned. One is it was almost sight unseen. They gave you the address and you kind of did a drive-by.
Right.
You couldn't get into the property. So the two things I learned were, yes, you may get the title, but there may be some property taxes or other liens, garbage liens that they didn't tell you about. So you end up with those paying for those as well. And the other one was it has to be all cash. So you got to bring a cashier's check within, I think they said 5 hours. You got to bring the cashier's check by the time they accept your offer. And so that was kind of, of course, and I knew that. The cashier's part, I knew I had money saved up for that. I told the GC that I was partnering with, don't go over this amount, and I'll have the money for you. So luckily it was slightly below that amount. So that was a big surprise. The other big surprise was whatever rehab you estimate, you got double air.
Right.
Once you start opening walls and sewer lines.
There's always a surprise somewhere, right?
Always the rehab budget. Yeah, I just it's always 1x, 1.5x or 2x of whatever you estimate it to be. So that was a big surprise. But as far as the process, it was fairly painless, as long as you got the cash. They just give you the deed, they record it. The recording takes a few days, but it shows up. And then, but would I do it again? Maybe, but there's not that many deals nowadays on the courthouse. Yeah,
Yeah.
So yeah, but I learned the other thing I learned was it's really tough to work with GCs and contractors, and it's not in property management you got to deal with them all the time, but maybe yours is all in-house, or maybe a hybrid model, but it's tough to work with the contract.
It is. It's still. I mean, it's still a struggle. It's a struggle for sure.
It's like seasonal. They're good for a season and then a bunch of trouble. But why I asked you about 2010 too, because I think we're right now we're in uncertain times, right? Mm-hmm. Like nobody knows what. We get a lot of people in real estate. We always ask them that
the answer is always different.
The crystal ball question: what's going to happen in the future? And I don't really. Nobody knows. I don't even know if I don't think the government knows. But you've witnessed a lot of ups and downs and changes in the markets, and what I guess what I'm asking is, like, through these uncertain times that we're going through now, what moves are you making with your funds, with your syndications? What do you consider? What do you try to prevent or be cautious of during these uncertain times, especially being that you've already gone through 2010, the last recession, kind of what you learned from that. Just what precautions, I guess, are you taking?
Yeah, that's a very relevant question. Number one, we've slowed down on the acquisitions. Definitely slowed down on buying. In one of my funds, we own. I'm partnered with 3 other gentlemen, and we have about 1,200 homes, Midwest, Southeast, that area. Mm-hmm. And for the past, I would say 12 months, it's been really hard to buy the right deals. Mm-hmm. So we've slowed down. So what we have done is now we've focused on fine-tuning the properties that we do have, like getting more efficiency out of those the 1,200 that we have. So things like looking at vacancy rates, looking at selling homes that are not renting out properly or fast enough. So we've been trimming some of the portfolio. But we have slowed down quite a bit on multifamily. We're not looking at buying anything just at all right now, because I think the word is out that there's some trouble and there's some blood in the water. It's going to get muddier. There's stories about even Dallas and Houston are in the news. There's some big operators that failed, and so I think that's going to spill over to some of the other markets. Lately, I've been hearing from so many of my investors, and including in one of my properties in Minneapolis, we haven't been able to make the quarterly distribution. So, and I'm hearing that more frequently now. I think there's going to be some problems. The stuff that we bought over 2 years ago, that's doing okay. That or if it was a heavy lift, because there was just so much value in the heavy lift, that those have worked out okay. We own some in Richardson, Texas, Lincoln, Nebraska. Those were heavy lifts, and they're performing okay. But the ones that were sort of marginal, I think I'm hearing from some of my investors that some of their properties in Atlanta are not doing well. Some of their properties in North Carolina are in trouble. So I think that's going to there's going to be more problems for multifamily.
Right. Correct.
So I'm not buying. I'm maybe this is the time to get some dry powder and be ready to have that ready.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I want to piggyback on the question that Shawn asked too. So, as with our listeners listening to the show, what advice would you give, the investors coming into the market?
Yeah, be very cautious. The interest rates are high, so you got to really crunch your numbers on the mortgage payments, what kind of loan you're going to get. Is your property going to get reassessed and you're going to end up with higher tax payments, and also insurance, especially in Texas and Florida and California.
Yeah.
This is yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so but if you're in Tennessee or you're in Alabama or Georgia, maybe it's a little bit more reasonable, maybe Indiana, but in California, Texas, Florida, insurance is a big X factor, so you got to take that into account. Rent increases. We used to be able to increase rents 5, 6, 7% a few years ago. I think that's getting tougher. So the underwriting's got to be really, really right on. So I would say be cautious.
Yeah.
But if you do find the right property, Joni, one of the things that I've learned is, if it's your first property, you got to get it right. You got to, you can't, you can't mess that up. But if you've built a portfolio over the years and there's going to be a cycle, and if you can withstand whatever cycle there is, because eventually it always comes, if you look at real estate values in Houston today, they're much higher than they were, 25 years ago, right? So you can withstand some of the shock, but you got to be, mentally and financially prepared for that.
Totally. Yeah. The takeaway I got there, knowing your numbers, right? That is crucial right there. And the other thing is being able to adapt and change depending on where the market is. Because obviously what you did in the 80s is not what you're doing now, right? You're not buying at the courthouse steps anymore. So being able to adapt and change. And I know you've been able to do that pretty well, right? So why don't you talk a little bit about how you've been able to do that?
Yeah. So cash flow is king. We love appreciation, but ultimately it's about cash flow and keeping your operating costs down. And I'm a big believer in property management, like good property managers. Like you
Absolutely.
guys are. I'm married to property managers. They're my ears and eyes.
The backbone, right?
Look, property management is, and a lot of people don't understand the importance of property management, right? And they're willy-nilly buying properties in Pittsburgh, and then they're buying something in Cleveland, but they don't know their property manager. But for me, luckily I've had the same property manager in Kansas City since 2014.
Nice.
They do a great job. You have a spectacular, amazing reputation like yourselves. So I would say buy in, let's say in Houston with you, because you'll take care of their properties versus buying a deal in Cleveland where the numbers may be slightly better, but you don't have a reliable property manager.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
So do your homework on property management. That is key. But what I'm doing right now is holding back on any major new acquisitions until after the elections, to see where the interest rates land, where the economy lands, but mainly the interest rate. That's big, and the big elephant in the room. But it's a big problem. But the government did give us a gift, when they were down to like 3-4%. That was a gift.
Yeah.
Everybody. Talk to us a little bit about how you manage such a large and robust real estate portfolio, and 1,200 homes, either multiple cities and all that. What's some practices, maybe processes? How do you streamline all that? How do you manage it and do it effectively and
Yeah. I don't know. Very, very good. When we bought the fund, or when we acquired the management company of the fund, they were at about 700 or so homes, and then that was 5 years, 6 years ago. And then we've added, but we have a team. We're 22 people. We're run out of Fresno, California. So I think it comes down to having the right team. So I'm part of the team that I help raise the capital to acquire the management company. So through my connections in Silicon Valley, we were able to purchase the management company, which then controlled the fund that has the 1,200 properties. The 1,200 properties are basically our investors have invested in those properties. It's a 506c fund. So the headquarters are in Fresno, California, and my friend David Hartgassel, he runs it day to day. He's the CEO. And we have asset managers, we have property managers. One of the things that we did was we looked at the property managers that were low tech, and they're still sending us spreadsheets that were
I laugh because when Shawn and I got started, we did that too. We were doing it off spreadsheets. Like, what are we doing?
And they don't have a ticketing system. They don't have a way to, the bookkeeping wasn't there. And that was, of all places, in Jacksonville, Florida. We had some problems there. So we got rid of the less efficient property managers. We brought in our own property managers in the areas where we have large holdings. So Cleveland, Indianapolis, Jacksonville, Detroit. Those are the markets. Toledo, Ohio. We hired a property manager, put him on payroll, and they report directly to us, to David. And so it's a matter of asset management. We have a full IT department in Fresno, so all the tracking, all the repairs, all the expenses, and the paying out the contractors, everything's tracked. So team, systems, processes, looking at the financials every month. So that's really what allowed us to scale up the operations. But yeah, that's what it takes. 22, not all W-2s, but a bulk of them are W-2s, but maybe 60% of them are contractors, but they're full-time with Voyager Pacific.
Nice. Good people. Yeah.
So with all those years of managing property and with 1,200 homes and then, thousands of apartments, you had to have had some challenges along the way, right?
No, Bobby having challenges.
So, I mean, tell us, do you have a story in mind that comes to that, maybe, I would love a challenging time and tell us, because I think we always like to share with our listeners, like, hey, people are successful, but it's not always been easy.
No.
And you've actually shown the path that you overcame a lot of challenges earlier in your career, but I'm sure there were some more as you were growing it, and maybe share something that
like years and years of falling on your face, I'm sure, right?
The most interesting one that I always share, it's a kind of a sad story, but I'm going to share it.
No, go ahead.
I hired a gentleman in Kansas City. We bought a duplex for like $12,000. It needed work. He was ex-Navy. So I'm like, we're going to give a job to a veteran. These guys are disciplined and they're, so we bought a house and the realtor. So he would, his name was Al. That's it. And he's like, oh yeah, I'll do the job for like, I'll fix it up all for like around $15,000. I'm like, wow, that's a really good price. Yeah, I got all the people and everything. I got the crew. I'll get it done for $15,000. So we gave him the job. And, the other thing I'd heard was, Midwest people from the Midwest, the salt of the earth, kind of people, right? So he would do the work. He would ask for more money, and I'd say, okay, did you finish? Yeah, I got the kitchen done, and I got the bathroom done. Anyway, I'm like, yeah, okay, here's your next, so 5,000. And then the last payment, I'm like, Al, send me some pictures, So he's like, my phone camera's not working. And, he just kept coming up with excuses.
Oh, no.
So,
I know where this is going.
Yeah. But finally, he sent me some pictures. I'm like, wow, this is great work. Like, I'm impressed. Like, this is, you've done a fabulous job with the kitchen and the bathroom. He sent me some pictures. And then he goes, yeah, okay, now I'm done. Send me the final payment. So I'm like, okay, I'm sending you the final payment. But, tell the realtor who, sold us the property that, she needs to come and get the keys from you and all that. Anyway, he disappears for a while. I call the realtor and I go, hey, Shirley, can you go to the property and check with Al and get the keys? He's done with the rehab. So she goes, oh, sure, I'll go and talk to Al and get the keys. She goes there and she calls me, and I'm in a meeting. So I see the phone. I decline. And then 30 seconds later, she's calling me again. And I'm like, okay, this is kind of urgent. So I'm going to go outside and take the call. She goes, Bobby, the house is exactly like I sold it to you.
Oh, no.
In fact, she's taken stuff out of the house. I'm like, what are you talking about? I said, did you go to the right house? And she goes, I know where this house is. I sold it to you. Well, he was sending me pictures from a different house.
Of course.
So that was an expensive lesson to learn.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great story for those that are listening. And what do they say? Inspect what you expect.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
wow. Well, Bobby, I have a question for you. So if you could go back in your early 20s, what advice would you give yourself?
I would say surround yourself with great people, ethical people, network like crazy, build authentic relationships, not just transactional relationships, build authentic relationships with people that you want to help, that you want to be around. But yeah, like, they say, and I'm sure Steve says this a lot, which is surround yourself with really good people, and positive, ethical, hardworking, motivated, and they're all around us. So that's what I wish I'd done more. So yeah.
Love it. And one other question we ask our guests on the show. So what's your next, Bobby? What are you looking to accomplish in the next 5 to 10 years?
I've got about 200 really good investors. I'm not looking to grow that database. It's if I can take care of those 200 people or so, that's good enough for me. So I'm not like trying to build the next big empire. I just got to service the people that I got. So just continue to grow the fund, but I'm not, trying to 10x it. That's
Right.
that's not me. It's more about lifestyle and health now. My ultimate goal would be to set up a charity in a third world country to help with teach people about computers and technology.
Oh, that's awesome.
I'm really kind of passionate about that,
Yeah.
and maybe financial education. But that is in America. I think it's needed in America more than anywhere else. Financial education. So maybe I'll do something with that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I love it.
How can some of our listeners get a hold of you? So I know you're not, but say maybe they got, they're looking for some place to put some money or just want to learn more about you. How can they learn more about you?
Yeah, so I'm easy to reach. I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Bobby Sharma. But the main fund is a Better Capital Fund. So Better Capital Fund. So it's just Bobby, Bobby, at Better Capital Fund. So that's kind of where I hang out.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Well, we'll put all that in the show notes so that people can reach out if they want to learn more about you and about your fund. And I appreciate it today. So it's good. It was we love learning about different stories and how people got to where they are today. And so we appreciate the time and we appreciate you being willing to share. So
yes, yeah, thank you so much, Bobby. I've known you for quite some time now, and just the stories today, I've learned a lot more about you, which is awesome. So a great story there, and you're doing some awesome things, and I can't wait for our listeners to tune in. So thank you again, Bobby.
yes.
Thank you, Bo. Shawn, thank you. And Joni, thank you so much. And I hope I can return the favor one day and I'll hopefully meet you in person.
Oh, we'd love that. So either we're going to, why don't we go to Miami?
Yes, I would love that.
That sounds way better than you coming to Houston.
Yeah.
So, but no, appreciate it. Yeah, sounds good. Well, everybody, if you like this show, please share it. Your ratings really matter. And so we appreciate you listening today, and we'll see you all next week.
See ya, everyone.
Thank you, Joni. Thank you, Shawn.
You've been listening to Inside the Wolf's Den, an entrepreneurial journey with Shawn and Joni Wolfswinkel. Tons of entrepreneurial podcasts are out there, talking. But Joni and Shawn are living it every single day. Their portfolio now includes many franchises and medium-sized businesses. We talk about the trials and motivators of successfully running a business. Join us again soon for another podcast. But until then, reach out on the website at InsideTheWolfsDen.com, on Facebook at Inside the Wolf's Den, on Instagram at Inside the Wolf Den. We'll see you again soon. This is Inside the Wolf's Den. We'll see you next time.